actually get to our
Lauren did.
your required hours. So the first thing, I wanted to go back to our conversation last Tuesday about K-Prep, because there's one thing I didn't mention, because there was so much to cover, and it slipped my mind, but it's so important, is, if we take a look at those students that scored novice, and I know you know this, but I think it definitely needs to be said. I was having a really good conversation with Stacy about this, I don't know if it was yesterday maybe. But those GAP students, or those students scoring novice, didn't just all of a sudden score novice in 3rd grade or 4th grade or 5th grade. I bet if we look back, they were novice in kindergarten, okay? And so they were novice in kindergarten. We didn't quite figure them out in kindergarten. They went on to 1st grade. We didn't quite figure them out in 1st grade. They went on to 2nd grade. I would venture to say that they were novice all the way since kindergarten, which means it is not a 3rd through 5th grade issue here. It starts in kindergarten. See the kindergarten teachers shaking their heads. Uh-huh.
We're ready.
It starts with us. And kindergarten needs to be able to identify those students who are that far behind and who aren't meeting our standard, who aren't understanding essential skills. Do whatever we can. It doesn't mean we're going to get them all what they need to be, but identify them and put interventions in place. And then in 1st grade, same thing, with constant assessments. Figure out who these kids are that are struggling, that are not getting it, that eventually when they take a K-Prep, they will be considered novice. Just because we don't take K-Prep in K-1-2 doesn't mean these students aren't novice, quote unquote novice yet. They are novice, and we haven't figured them out yet. It's not for lack of trying, because hard-working staff. I commend you guys on your passion and intense time that you put in towards kids. And I think we've got it whittled down to the toughest of the tough, but they're still not getting it. So I know our focus last Tuesday were on these K-Prep scores, but please, I know the light bulbs are on all of you, but in case it hadn't, please, this is a K-5 thing. And it's Reg Ed, Special Ed, A&H, it's everybody. It's all. These are all of our kids, all hands on board. That's why we put the pictures and their names up. Because if we wanted to go back to the kids that aren't getting it, we could put kindergarten faces, a whole bunch of them this year. Kindergarten faces up there, 1st grade faces, 2nd grade faces. It's that way every year. We come in with a whole bunch of kindergartners, and our kindergarten teachers work their magic and really whittle it down to a few. A few go on to 1st grade. We have got to start figuring them out in K-5. Like I said, not for lack of trying. I'm so proud of this staff and how hard you all work and how collaborative you are. Wouldn't trade this staff for anybody. It'd be easy. There are staff out there that would have got the news that we got last Tuesday about these GAP, and all of a sudden, 1 or 2 people on the staff start getting ugly. Start being a mean girl or a mean guy, Start pointing fingers. Start making excuses. Well, it's this, it's these curriculum frameworks. Well, it's this staff member, it's that. We're not about that, We've had 1 or 2 of those before. They're not on this staff anymore. That's not what we're about at Camden. We're about being collaborative and working together and understanding that these are all of our kids. And that's what we're doing in our PLCs. Doesn't matter if my kids scored the highest during this unit in the pre-assessment. Doesn't matter. As a PLC, we're going to work together on them. I'd like to, I would like for us to be this cohesive that we could look at CMF. CMF. We have too many acronyms.
I'm like,
CMF.
everybody's trying to figure out.
I think I might steal those something else.
I made up a new one. No. How about I just not use acronyms? I'm informed assessment. How about, imagine this. That we can give this common formative assessment. Me and my 3 teammates or 2 teammates or whatever. And I can see that my group scored the lowest. All right? Nicole's group scored the highest. Tracy's right. Okay? I need to have conversations with these two about what I did, what they did, how I can make revisions. Now as we do our win group, Nicole, like it or not, and I'm gonna like it because I care about every kid, taught it the best the first time, so now our win group, she takes the lowest group. I take the highest group. And you know what, maybe that happens 3 times in a row, but you know what? Swallow my pride, I do what's best for kids. I know I'm still a superstar, that's why I'm a Camden, and I'm still doing a great job. And I'm with 2 superstars on my team too, who are doing their best. And maybe eventually, I will have gotten it best the first time, and then I take that low group. And you guys have got to be confident in each other and swallow our pride once in a while, say, I can do better. I mean, because we're all there. I don't care who you are, how long you've been doing this or not been doing it, or how great your K-Prep scores have been for the last 20 years. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Somebody on the team is going to be a little bit better at one of these standards than everybody else. They ought to be taking the low groups during those win groups, or sharing what they're doing with the rest of the team. But until we get to that point, I think we're still going to have some novice kids. But I think we whittle them away a lot faster when we get to that point where it doesn't matter who scored the highest, who scored the lowest. It's about everybody getting better all the time. So it's a K-5 thing. It's a special ed thing. It's an A&H thing. It's an administrative thing. You know, and believe me, Dana and I go round and round on what we need to be doing better as the principal and assistant principal here. And trust me, we're beating ourselves up too and trying to figure out how we can better support the staff. So it's everybody. So please understand that. I know you know that, but I think it needs to be said because I didn't say it last Tuesday. So I put those, a lot of those results on the SharePoint. I emailed some of them today, but if you want more in-depth, like I said before, please come to me. I'll get you more in-depth analysis. I'll meet with you, I'll meet with your team, however you want to go through and look at individual kids. It doesn't just have to be K-Prep. You know, we can look at math, we can look at DRA, we can look at your common formative assessments. You know, I'm not saying they're writing them with you, but I can sit down and if you want another set of eyes to look and try to analyze what we're doing well and where we need to fill in some gaps with the kids. Because until we really look at true assessment data, we're not going to know exactly what to do for each individual kid. And that's not everybody's strengths. Okay, I understand you're a bunch of superstars, but nobody is great at every single piece of this job. It's too big. Some of you are better at analyzing assessments. Some of you are better at creating assessments. Some of you are better at instructional strategy on your team. So we need to use everybody's strengths and put them together. And not worry about what I'm not the best at. You know, if we get hung up on what I don't know and what I'm not the best at, our kids are never going to get our best. They're not going to get our 100%. So I'll keep trying to swallow our pride and understand that we have a lot to learn, everybody. Because our growth, like I told you guys, best in the district, it was 15th in the entire state. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. And our achievement was second best in the district. It's you know, our gap. It's those kids in the gap population, mostly free and reduced kids, that we just struggle with as a staff, as a school, not individually. And our entire school struggles with that. So I'll keep repeating myself. I think you get the point, but it's got to be collaborative. It's got to be positive. Negativity will kill us. It's a cancer. So don't be that person, please. All right, I think I've said it. Lauren.
Another positive thing, yeah. Cyber safety.
Cyber safety.
I just wanted to talk to you all quickly as a staff to clarify. I know you've gotten a lot of emails lately, and I first apologize that these have not been sent out in the correct order. So what happened, mine was at 2:01 a.m. on Saturday morning. I got an email saying I needed to take a training from Know Before, and because we had not been informed that we were going to start these trainings from the district, a lot of us thought they were spam and that they were trying to catch us, or that you had done something wrong and now you have to do this. So I got a lot of emails. Yeah, don't actually click on it. But what that was, the district accidentally did not know that was going to go out so soon. Instead of informing you first, hey, look for an email about cyber safety training, and it would be from Know Before blah blah blah. So So I'm telling you, that was not a spam or a phishing email, actually. You actually do have to take a 15-minute training about cyber safety, specifically about phishing this month. Not like the fish with the pole and the, yeah. Instead, it's about internet safety. So I wanted to quickly show you what that looks like. I'll also write, since I'm saying it, then I'm going to email it right after I say it. So I will email you the directions exactly how to do it. I took it the other night, and it really wasn't bad. It was 15 minutes, and I know, but 15 minutes is one more thing on your plate, so I apologize for that. And I know that things like this happen because other people have done something that has caused something like this. So last year we had some incidents, not here at the school, that caused some of our student data to get leaked, and it was a big deal. And so just unfortunately, just like we do sometimes with our students in our classroom, when one person does something, we have to reprimand everybody. So that's kind of what's happening. Every month we will get a training. So far, there's no safety trainings. When I say safety, I mean like physically slips, trips, and falls like last year for now. And instead, they're going to be replaced with these cyber safety trainings. Every month, though, I will send that out, or they will at the district level to you, and I might just reiterate, hey, you may click on this, look for this. But this one, so since you haven't been there before, I quickly opened up the link up here on my browser. So when you go there, and I will send you this link, the know before, first thing it asks you is your email address. After you type in your email, then it asks for a password. Your password is might be 4 digits, it might be 5 digits on your ID. So your school or your district ID is what your password is. And then you just automatically click the start training, the green button. There's only one training listed below. It took about 15 minutes. I actually learned some things I did not know and I wasn't aware of, and how advanced some of these people, I call them predators, have gotten. So please don't feel silly if you do get tricked by one of these things. They're getting really sophisticated. It used to be there was grammatical errors, now there's not. They take the actual logos of companies and physically put them in there. The site looks legit, or it's somewhere you have been before, but when you hover over it, it's actually taking you somewhere else. So don't feel threatened. Please just go ahead and ask me to come look at it, or just delete it if you think it's something that you shouldn't be opening. So be careful. But there is not a quiz at the end. You just have to listen, click next, and then you're done, and it'll say on the screen at the end when you click finish, you have completed this training. Thank you. It is due October 31st, and I'll send out that email of how to get to this.
So there's no certificate or anything to
Nope,
print out?
nope. The district's tracking that through your username and your ID. Does anyone have questions about that? If you come across emails, don't forget, or anything, websites that don't look familiar, please just ask me. Whether it's be careful or just delete, then click on something, and then that data gets out. Thank you. Renee! Oh, you're already ready. And I am recording this, so you all.
For who? It's just Jeff.
For
We're gonna
Jeff.
wave. We're gonna wave.
For the board, we're gonna put it on, no.
Thought we'd share on SharePoint the whole district.
Before we get started, were there any kudos that anyone wanted to share before we start?
I'll share mine.
Okay, Kelly?
Well, it kind of goes with this PD. So I wanted to kind of kudos and thank second grade, because last year we had a lot of discussions with them about addition and subtraction, and just we shared like strategies that we taught and that they taught, and we had a lot of vertical discussions. And this year we're seeing like huge improvements, and there's way more students in the higher groups than ever before, and just our overall understanding of it, that those two operations is better than ever, and I think it has to do with all of our collaboration last year. So I wanted to thank them.
Awesome. Great. Sarah?
Renee, I would like to thank you for coming in. We realized as a grade level that kind of the opposite. We were moving on to more traditional addition, and they just were not ready for it. They did not have a solid understanding of what they were doing. So we worked with Renee to back up and reteach partial sums, and she helped us make a graphic organizer for them and help us plan out all those days. And I think it's, I mean, I know I've seen so much improvement just over these 2 days that we've gone back and kind of just did what was best for them. So, thank you.
Amy Townley, because she came into my classroom today, and I literally looked at her and said, "Do you want to teach this so I can observe you?" She was like, "Yeah, sure." So she did it, and so I got to hear, you know, because this is my first time teaching kindergarten, so I don't know a lot of the vocabulary and language, and I wasn't really sure where I was going with the lesson. So she did it on the fly. She just said, "Yeah, got up there and did it," and it was awesome. So thank you.
So I think all these kudos go back to what Stu was saying about great collaboration, moving kids forward. So that is really awesome. So, yes, Amy?
For Stacy, who's coming in and working with my behavior kids in writing. I also have Jamie Miller, and so I've got district eyes in our kids' rooms, and then also Stacy, and we're having good conversations between the school and district level, and so some of the things I got to share at our district PLC last week, everybody is getting more aligned on that, and our boys are writing. They're writing, and they're excited about it, and so we're not dodging those books.
That's great. That's great. Well, in front of you, you will find today's PowerPoint, and then a white sheet of paper, which will be like a note catcher for you to use today during our time together. If you need more, we just kind of put certain amounts on the table. Just let Laurie know, and she can pass it around.
Color might be one extra.
So we are going to be looking at the progressions today, and we're going to be looking for the next two sessions, the progressions from preschool to 6th grade. You want to take a moment and read today's outcomes. Could I have someone read the outcomes aloud? Volunteer? Courtney?
Both of them?
Please.
Understand the vertical alignment and progression of P through 6 math standards and how this progression supports differentiation. Also, identify how the P through 6 math progression will determine grade level instructional practices.
So last year, team leaders shared that there was a need for us to get together in vertical teams and talk more about the progressions and expectations for each grade level. So this is why we decided for the next 3 hours of our math PD to look at our progressions. Last summer, we talked about what differentiation could look like in the classroom. And we discussed that there were 3 ways that we can differentiate. One was by content, what students will learn. The other was by process, how students will learn the content. And then the third way was product, how students will demonstrate their knowledge. Knowing these progressions will help this differentiation in your math workshop. According to Julie Dixon that we talked about this summer, math content knowledge is not enough. Teachers must know the math for their grade, know the math that comes before and after their grade level, and also understand how they progressed over time. It's really easy to put on the screen and to read that, but that is a huge task, and it's just going to take time for us to get to that point where we are proficient knowing math in our grade, the grade before, and then the grade above. So today we're going to be looking at certain domains. But if you look, here are the early childhood benchmarks for 3- and 4-year-olds identified by KDE. So take a moment and read those. What are some noticings that you have about these benchmarks?
I think they're kind of vague.
Very vague.
Do they later become the things like NVT and all those big?
They help to build upon that, absolutely. They focus on 2 main things. What are the 2 main things that stick out? Okay, we have some number sense, understanding numbers and counting. Yes, Rachel? Kelly? Shapes and patterns, a lot of geometry, which when you look at MAP scores, most of the time kindergarten MAP scores are highest in geometry in the beginning when they enter. But the only caveat to this is if a child attended a preschool that these concepts are instructed upon. And we know that all children don't do that when they enter K. The domains are organized into two different bands, a K through 2 band and a 3 through 5 band. So take a moment and look at the domains that fall within the K through 2 band. What are some of our noticing? And I heard the word scary. What are some noticings that we had about this K through 2 band with the domains?
Except for counting.
Yeah, they're all the same except for kindergarten with counting and cardinality.
We were saying it was scary because if they don't get it, then it's nowhere else.
Absolutely. Very scary. So could we say that every standard under that domain in kindergarten is essential? Because once they leave, they're not going to get it.
Well, it's not over there, but like in first grade, they're expected to count to 120. In second grade, they're expected to get all the way through the hundreds. So even though it's not listed, we still do those things. Or it's
Right.
still part of our standard. So it's kind of funny how it's not listed, but yet it continues to be a standard.
Right.
The higher up you go.
Right. It builds upon.
Right.
Yeah. So if we don't set those foundational
Right.
concrete levels, like you're saying, Amy, then we're going to have those gaps. And then here are the 3 through 5 band and their domains. What are some things that we notice about that grade band progression? Sarah?
Their geometry drops off after second grade. Geometry is in the K through 2, and then it's not in 3 through 5.
And you know what? That's a slide miscue. It is in there.
Okay.
Sorry. I was like, what? That, it's cut off. It's cut off. It is in there. Thank you for bringing that up. There is something else that's new in there. You're probably like, what am I looking at? Would you please right now write geometry under those grade bands? They are in it. I was like, ah. Katie?
There's fractions starting in 4th grade. Numbers and operations, instead of base 10, it says fractions.
Right. So 3rd grade is the first time that students are introduced with fractions. There's other concepts that are preparing those for that understanding, but 3rd grade is the first time that fractions will be introduced. Fractions are always also a gateway to how successful children will be in algebra. So in 3rd grade, if children have gaps in fractions, that is going to result in gaps with algebra, which when we enter college, what do they expect you to have? Algebra. And then the last band we're going to look at is the 6th grade domain. What remains the same in the 6th grade domains?
Geometry.
The only thing that remains the same is geometry. What are your thoughts about that once we see where they go for 6th grade? they don't have it when they leave us, then they're in trouble. They're in trouble. They really would be in trouble too if we skip geometry from 3rd through 5th though. Luckily we don't do that. Please don't go out in the district and say, our math coach said. Okay. So today we're going to have an opportunity to work in vertical teams that I will show you in just a moment. And we are going to look at the progressions. You will get a file folder that has these note cards. We're going to go in different classrooms. Some groups are going to stay in here. And the note cards will help you put the correct standard under the grade level that it falls in. The answers are inside the folder when you're finished. But this is really important. I didn't want this to become filling in the pieces of the puzzle. I wanted to have power and conversation about the standards, not figuring out where they all went, K through 5. So in your bags, you have K through 2 standards, and then 3 through 5. So when you're organizing these and putting them in alignment, keep them separate, and it will make it go a little quicker as you're going through the progression. Questions about that? In your vertical teams, you're going to become an expert in a domain. And then you're going to come back to your horizontal PLC and share things that you found. So if you look at the white sheet of paper, on the paper, your team will be assigned a domain. And as you're going through the progressions, think about what mathematical knowledge will students have entering your grade. Your kindergarten teacher, you're not going to be able to do it for this time because we're not looking at those domains that progress. How will your grade level build upon this knowledge? And what concepts will you be preparing your students for the following grade? Okay? It's just an area for you to take notes. These are for you. Okay? For you to report back to your team to be an expert in that domain. When we get back together in our grade level PLCs, you're going to discuss how will your knowledge of the mathematical progressions impact your instruction in math. What questions might you have?
Renee, I do have a question.
Sure.
With our cards,
Uh-huh.
are we, there may be instructions over there, but are we sorting them and then pasting them on something, or just keeping it in our heads?
Well, you can take a picture. I just thought we would lay out on the table because there's a lot of standards. So I couldn't find a piece of paper or file folder like we did last time to where they could all fit. Okay. So here are the teams that you're going to be working with and the domain that you are going to become an expert in. If your name is highlighted in yellow, I'm asking if you wouldn't mind taking your group to your room. And if your name is not highlighted, if you will stay here in the library. Tammy's not on here because she's going to pick where she would like to go based on her caseload. Allison, you can do the same as well.
Well, that was before, I figured it was by grade level, but everybody's mixed up in there.
But you said there was one student you would like to follow, so if you want to
Yeah.
go with that student's teacher, that might be helpful.
Okay.
So before we break out, if I could have one person from each PLC group come up and get your materials.
He's first.
Yeah. Be brave, race to it. Hey, Marlon, where are you at?
I got both on kids.
Rachel, are you?
I guess I usually
Sorry.
You're supposed to stay in here. She's moving.
That's Molly's.
Kindergarten.
You never know.
You never know. Well, we have one, we don't have two. Alright, I'm looking
I'm asking you to come back at 3:45.
You're the group, you were closest.
Is this for Jeff?
This is for Jeff. You wanna wait?
Because I might just need to make a little special message for him.
Where is he? Jeff, where are you?
Well, those aren't out yet. Those are in here.
These are all K1.
This is supposed to be.
This is two.
Subtract within 5. I'm gonna guess.
Figured Sean would talk loud enough for him to hear.
2.
2. I keep moving it. I didn't know where to put it out of the way. Oh, that's 5. So
We go within 100.
So
this one's within 10 then, so maybe that's 10. Yes, but within 20.
Second grade does rectangular arrays, right?
Yes. I had one that came in.
That one's second grade. Get first.
I would think that's not there. Is this already sorted or not sorted?
Maybe you should find a
I guess it's like, was,
This is specific standard for that's just used as a strategy. Here's the thing, is that you two?
I know it's fifth grade. What is that on right now? I know it's fifth grade, but I can't remember what.
Maybe they went to the skills one, this is our grade.
it says within 20, this is within 10.
20 within second? How high do you quite go to 20?
We go fluently within 20. Our word problems are within 100.
Okay. Alright, they're not gonna see them either.
I was looking for Ashley. Did she use the restroom?
I've just been standing. Part of that is.
So are they introducing the concepts behind the formal properties?
These are word problems within 20.
Do that first grade.
It could be that, you all. This could just be a critical year.
Whole numbers
Just less than or equal to 20.
They just were resourceful.
We add 3 numbers, we have 2-step word problems, but we don't have one that sounds like that.
But it's a one. Last sentence.
It goes to the read it. Solve word problems that call for addition of 3 whole numbers whose sum is less than or equal to 20 by using objects, drawings, and equations with a symbol for the unknown number to represent the
I think that's you.
problem.
So you have multi-step adding 3
But
numbers.
it should be with this one.
What is that one?
It says use addition and subtraction within 100 to solve 1 and 2-step word problems involving situations.
3 add-ins.
like the unknown
But I
factor
feel like
being,
this was in your unit that you just did.
Already in second
I think
grade?
that's 3 add-ins.
But an unknown factor being a variable.
Maybe we haven't gotten to that. Language isn't our stat. Maybe it's in, like this is divided into 2 units. So that might be your next unit, after the one we're doing.
Yeah, been revised.
Guess we'll see.
Should we look at the answer key for
Yeah,
that?
this one,
After 10 years.
Use addition to total number of
I feel like we should look at the answer key
Oh,
before we
you're
try
good.
those.
Yeah.
And the answer key is separate.
I don't do that because I know that.
Understanding addition is putting together. Solve addition and subtraction word problems. Decompose numbers less than decompose numbers less than or equal to 10 into pairs. And then for any number from 1 to 9, find the number that makes 10.
Not this one? Yeah, it should be. Add, subtract, limit.
Yes.
so those are all there.
All right, first grade, represent and solve problems. Solve word problems that call for addition of 3 whole, that's the one we were saying.
I was like, I
We
don't
haven't gotten to that one yet.
It says no.
Apply properties of operations as strategies to add and subtract. Unknown subtraction. Whoops, that goes with that. Is this a new one?
Understand subtraction.
As a unknown added problem.
Solve word problems that call for addition of 3, etc.
Relate counting to addition and subtraction. Add and subtract within 20.
Represent and solve problems involving addition and subtraction.
Yes,
Addition and
yes.
subtraction within.
And then the last one is understand the meaning of this equal sign.
Determine whether a group of objects up to 20 has an odd or even number of members by parent.
We read it on.
determine the unknown whole number in an addition or subtraction equation relating to 3 whole numbers.
Yeah, I don't even,
So it's
I don't even see that on here.
This is like a strategy.
I was gonna say, it's like what
The
your,
equation's true.
with
It's
unknown
not, we
big
use
amounts.
this,
It's not
but
in the
it's
answer
not,
key.
it's not been a strategy.
I wonder if it got meant.
Absolutely add and subtract within 20.
Maybe it's a number. Maybe we'll set it to the side, so they only have 4.
Add and subtract within 20 using mental strategies.
From memory also.
That should be on there somewhere. Fluently add and subtract within 20.
Fluently add, yeah.
Okay.
Determine whether a group of objects up to 20 has odd or even. Use addition to find the total number of objects arranged in a rectangular array.
Represent was the first.
Okay, so what's the one?
This one is,
Yes.
That's fluid.
so this one.
Did we miss it?
I don't see it.
Determine.
Unknown whole number.
Like 8 plus 1 equals. I don't see.
Yeah, we use it as a strategy.
She tried to trick us.
Nope.
It's not on the answer
I wonder if it's a grade 5 like that.
because they're yellow as well.
Still, 8 plus something equals 11.
Could be a
I do
30.
that in second grade.
We use that, and, yeah, we use it as a strategy.
Yeah, we all use it.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll put it back in. Maybe we'll come up with that. Okay.
Give me an example. I need an example.
This way.
This is where I'm like, I don't know. I don't know when this happened.
Sorry, I can't read without my glasses on. It's just yellow squares right now.
But is it fluently though, or is it just?
Yes, it's fluid. Yes, you for sure.
This sounds like something.
Multiply or divide to solve word problems.
Well, I have no clue what grade it's
It could be fifth. They all build on it.
I know, they all sound so similar.
Generate a number or shape pattern that follows a given rule. We do that. Identify apparent features of the pattern that were not explicit in the rule itself. Here's a rule.
generate two numerical
It says
patterns
by
using two given rules, is that?
Oh, 2 rules, maybe that's fit.
Yeah, I think that might be fair.
No, remember, they didn't know all.
That would be my guess. I can't tell what's sorted and not. These are not sorted?
Those are not.
I don't know if this is in the right. It's multiply and divide for word problems.
Those are hard.
Involving multiplicative comparison.
That's
Multi-step word problems.
We do mine.
It really does help you like
Using the four operations.
like
Remainders must be.
But if you literally just type it.
But like you're using like partial description, like
I think that's fourth
you're
grade.
seeing, like you're not, that's, what about this one?
Properties of operations.
Is that four?
10, you're figuring, you're not.
No, we don't do remainders.
Kind of do a little bit of that.
Well, who does like express the calculation at 8 and 7?
A lot of it has been
Sounds
that.
like Kodak.
Yeah. That multi-step.
Oh my gosh, when I looked at that thing.
It was.
Do you do the distributive property?
I know I'm not special.
Do you do the distributive property? You do the properties. Name.
This might be us because it says students need not use the formal terms for these properties.
Yeah, I don't know. That, we do this, but I don't know if you start it.
Okay, so I found one that was similar to that.
This is like basic, fast food.
I don't know about this one. What is that?
That's why today, yes, right.
Addition to foreign language.
Are you okay?
Standard.
I checked my contacts. I think somebody might have already met Cat on them and I touched my.
Oh, no.
Oh no. I've done allergy drops, so I only have one. I can see this close up and this far. So I'm like,
Ready to check?
Start with third.
Third grade. Represent and solve problems involving multiplication and division. Interpret whole number quotients of whole numbers. Use multiplication and division within hundreds. Determine the unknown whole number. Apply properties of operations as strategies to multiply and divide. And last one is understand division as an unknown factor problem.
But they didn't say
Represent solve problems involving multiplication.
Maybe you do.
It says by the end of grade 3,
wait,
know
there's
from
more.
memory all products.
There's more.
I'm like, wait.
Hold on, you got a big bunch here.
oh, there's a whole other page.
We got understand division as an unknown factor, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fluently multiply and
There
divide.
it is.
There it is.
And then solve two-step word problems using four
It
up.
says multi-step.
Oh, wow, third grade.
You want to change the four? You can.
Those are both
Okay, fourth grade. Use the four operations with whole numbers to solve problems. Multiply or divide to solve word problems. Solve multi-step word problems posed with whole numbers. Find all factor pairs. Generate a number or shape pattern that follows a given rule. Okay, fifth grade, you want to read them? Make sure we don't have an extra one.
Yeah.
Write and
But what about
interpret.
that one? Where did that
I put it back in the bag. Write and interpret numerical expressions. Write simple expressions that record calculations. Generate two numerical patterns. That's that one. That's it.
What about that one?
35 equals 5 times 7, that's a statement.
Again.
So this one is identify arithmetic patterns, including patterns in an addition table or multiplication table, and explain them using properties of operations. For example, observe that 4 times a number is always even, and explain why 4 times a number can be decomposed into 2 equal addends.
on here?
It's not nice.
I mean, we look at the multiplication table and look at patterns, but that last part, I don't know.
So that would make sense.
4 times a number can be decomposed into 2 equal addends.
Because it's always going to be even.
I can't read out loud, so you know.
She's not in here to ask if she put some curveballs in our backs.
Maybe we get a prize.
I really have to look
On that one.
You tried to trick us, but we decided that that wasn't on your answer key.
We're just not gonna teach those. Yeah, they don't fit on your.
So now we gotta take notes.
What mathematical knowledge will students have entering your grade?
They have.
They're gonna know it all. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
it's like having taken a Well, because I feel like
Right in terms of numerical expression. Oh, use parentheses, brackets, braces, and numerical expression.
They should know.
Have that memorized.
Right, simple.
word problems. Because this year we're starting with our word problems.
Right,
staying
simple
under
expressions
20
that
for a
record
while
calculations
before we
of
even
numbers.
start
Determine
going towards
numerical
100.
expressions without evaluating them. For example, express the calculation, add 8 and 7, then multiply. Understand the mission of a unknown factor problem. For example, find 32 divided by 8 by finding the number. Number that makes 32 when multiplied by 8. Multiply and divide within 100.
I feel embarrassed.
Generate 2 numerical patterns. Generate 2 numerical patterns using 2 variables. Identify apparent relationships in corresponding terms. Form word pairs.
Katie, I feel like our students have a pretty good understanding of all.
Oh, good. Hey, Renee.
Like we've already done a few of these this year.
There were outliers.
They were. Good. We
Aren't they? Is that what you said?
You get these two.
Oh.
One was in the K-3.
Oh, there's a third grader outlier that was left off. I have, it's the comparing digits 10 to 100. That one. Is that one of the outliers?
No, the one about the multiplication table.
Patterns with an addition table.
Okay, I'll go get it.
That one came out of here, and then this one came out of here.
Okay.
I could see that one being third.
Find all factor pairs for a
I'm interested to see what it's going to be like
Recognize that a whole number
next year for you guys because our second unit is on the word problems instead of January, February, that time. And then the thing was is that the alignment of the units before was that we did word problems before to add and subtract to
Really?
So it was weird because we were having them add and subtract, and some of them had to like figure out how to regroup
Before you taught.
before we taught how you can, break a 10.
Does it flow better now?
Well, we're starting this year with place value, so we're hitting like expanded form and the value in each digit like really hard right now.
Yeah.
And so comparing numbers. So I'm really hoping, and then our next unit is adding subtracting. But I was telling Jennifer, we did mixing and cleaning because this unit last year has always just been so rough. I mean, it's just been really hard. So we're gonna stick with understanding the language first before it's like the numbers in there. Because even knowing what to do and how to
Because in
tackle
first
it.
grade, word problem was first. And then it's so far away. So it was the same thing. It was like the same concept.
We kind of do word problems all year. All of our units. But we just started doing arrays for multiplication, and like they had they knew it. They knew exactly what it was. They could name it. They could find the total. But like you guys have it where they're.
I wonder if it's still at the end.
It's towards the end. It's not where it was last year. It says use addition to find a total number of objects. Some of them are still they're still counting each one. Some of them haven't clicked yet that they can just skip count.
Well, we talked about counting the rows.
Yeah.
And so we would write it out 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5. But the issue I saw was like the rows versus the columns. And we realized that you have to stick with the rows. Otherwise, it makes a totally different equation. So we had them write 5 plus 5 plus 5 all the way down the side, and then had them add up that
That's how
way.
you say
But
it.
It is, maybe.
but yeah, they really understood. Because we had shown them the symbol, and we told them you're not allowed to say times.
Yeah.
Like, that means nothing. It has to be groups up.
Yeah.
So you're showing me 2 groups of 5 here. And so I feel like they connected to that much quicker because they were so excited about it.
Yeah, I
than the
had to like
repeated
ban the
addition.
word times.
Yeah.
4 times 2, 6 times 8. I'm like, what is times?
No.
Well, it's like this times this. Well, what is times?
Yeah. We didn't let
Like,
them
and
say
I'm like,
it.
time.
We
When I
showed
think
them
time, I think of the
symbol.
time on the clock. And they were like, huh?
Even in 5th grade. we
Yeah.
Well, and that's where we're trying to figure out too, when we get to that unit, if we should even show them the symbol or just stick with repeated addition.
I don't think you guys should show it. Because
What
we
does it
haven't even
say?
shown it yet. And we've been doing it for over
It
a
says
week.
use addition to find the total number of objects arranged in rectangular arrays. Write an equation to express the total as a sum is addition.
Okay.
It's repeated addition. It's not multiplication. Which would make sense because that's more of a representational model. You know what I mean? And then when you get
And
to
then
U.
it directly leads into the
Right.
I had one to my room during literacy night, and she was like, yeah, we're doing multiplication. I know like 2 times da, 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 and I'm like, okay, so are you using the arrays, you know, that we use and everything? And she was like, well, we do the circles and then the dots in the circle, and I'm like, okay, well, that sounds good. But I'm like, I don't.
We teach repeated addition, equal groups like circles and dots, arrays, area model. Those are our strategies.
Well, the thing that killed me though was like, you're focusing on that one little X. You're not even,
I know.
like, it's not even the concept.
But they get so excited. We're multiplying.
I know. Well, and
And then parents get all excited.
And
They're
the
learning
parent
how
that
to
I'm
multiply.
thinking of at the moment, she
Got
was
those
trying to
flashcards.
teach her multiplication in 2nd grade, and I tried to cut it off because I was like, no, she still needs to learn how to add 2 3-digit numbers.
Okay, now we have
This is one of the strategies we use for sure. I don't think it's a separate.
this one we were unsure of. Solve
That is, hey, will you explain that? Isn't that the strategies? Oh wait, isn't that that document that you use with all the different strategies for solving?
two numerical patterns using given rules.
We use that a lot for the word problem, but the list of strategies, it's the same as yours. No, those are the word problems.
Apply for opportunity.
Yes.
Well, that's what I wanted. I
all
wanted to
of
see if
those.
it was the same, because this is the first introduction to it. And that's what our discussion was, we were playing this unit. Like when we assess them after we teach them, are you assessing that they used a strategy, or you assess that they used a particular strategy?
What does the
You know,
standard
that's
say?
it. You introduce all of them.
They have to add and subtract within 20, demonstrating fluency for addition and subtraction within 10.
Find the
So
area
use
of
strategies such as counting on, making 10, using the relationship units. So they have to show evidence that they can use strategies.
Right, not per se,
A specific
specific.
one.
Right.
We had talked
Because
about that.
again, they come back up in 2nd grade and they reinforce the strategies.
Well, and our big thing
It's like,
too, did yours say fluent? No.
To 10.
It's fluency to 10, but because trying to are we assessing fluency, or are we assessing the fact that they can get to the answer quickly
Right.
using a strategy?
Right.
And I feel like sometimes that's so hard because when we think fluency, we think automaticity, so they're doing it, they just memorize the answers versus can they use a strategy to get there? So, I don't know. I feel like we know a little bit better about the fluency portion, but
Okay, so 6th grade.
But I feel like even in the assessment that you created, we're like,
Apply and extend.
depending on the number, they should be able to discern which strategy is most important.
most important.
And I feel like yours is probably an introduction to the strategies, where yours is like, okay, I have 10 plus 8, I should use a 10 frame, you know what I mean?
Yes, like make a
Or like I
10
have a
or-
9 plus
yeah,
8, I
yeah.
should be able to say 9 is close to 10 and 10 plus 8 is 18, subtract 1.
Right.
Right, is this reasonable?
Right, see, because like in 1st grade, like our pre-assessment had almost every single strategy, and it was overwhelming, and we were trying to
Apply and
decide,
extend previous understanding.
are we assessing these like the strategy? You know, we're
Individually.
teaching the strategy, but do we expect every single kid to use the strategy of what was the one that was, you were struggling with? Decomposing numbers, because every kid, you know, like if you have, right, every kid may not choose to use that strategy.
Right.
They might just use the counting on strategy, or the counting back, so if you have that.
But in the other sense though, I could see you using it as a pre-assessment to know which strategies to teach. You know what I mean?
Well, like
It might not necessarily be your post-assessment, but I
Yeah,
could
like
see,
it was-
like,
It was,
So you guys
11,
teach like multiple strategies
8.
and then they can just like use the one that like.
yeah, like but our pre-assessment this time, we tried to be more explicit, but then when they saw it, they were, we don't know what all those lines are. Because it's make a 10,
Right.
you know, it says use make a 10 strategy, and they're like,
they don't
and
know
so
the make it 10
nobody-
strategy,
so
so they can
nobody
get
knew
a
it.
solution, but they
Right,
couldn't identify.
so nobody in first grade got any of that part of the test.
Right,
So it was kinda like, do we just waste paper and time
right,
doing that?
right.
Where,
But now you have that information.
yes,
You know what I
yes,
mean?
and so, but our post, we were thinking the post would look different, the post wouldn't have per se a strategy, it would have equations, number problems, and say, explain your strategy.
Exactly. I think that would be more appropriate.
I would too, okay, that's what.
That's what-
We do that sometimes. We'll have the equation and then a spot and it just says like strategy. So then they
Right.
just choose whatever
Do
strategy.
you do that same thing, Kelly? Do you introduce a
Because that's what
variety
we
of
did before.
strategies and then the post-assessment is just
Yeah.
selecting
So
a
like
strategy?
in the unit, we work on all of them, and like they have to learn it, but then like on the post-assessment, we just expect them to use one.
Do you provide them with numbers that would get at reasonability? Like if it's
Yeah.
9 plus, I mean, I know you have more complicated numbers, but if it was 9 plus 8 and a kid does,
Counting up.
yeah, is that the best?
Yeah,
We
instead of
use-
making
I don't know,
10,
because our our addition, our strategies are base 10, partial sums, and number lines.
So they're,
oh, so number
so
lines.
they might, well, I guess for each kid, they might be more efficient or less
But
efficient.
what I've seen is like the kids who really understand place value, they go to partial sums because it's faster and more efficient.
Right, because.
Those of them who are lower, they stick with that drawing
Number
of the
line,
base 10.
yeah.
So like, on Friday, we gave a CFA and asked, with 4 addition problems, and asked them to use partial sums to do the top 2, and traditional to use the bottom 2, and not one kid in my class knew how to use partial sums.
Really interesting.
Not one kid.
But it makes sense because they're lower, so they have.
Yeah, but even
they
like
rely on that base
Addison, Welsher, not low kids. I mean, they are lower, some overwhelmingly lower, but they're not all lower. And nobody used partial sums. Yeah, well, I only had one kid, Addison Welsh, attempted to use partial
they use
sums
something else?
incorrectly. They drew base 10 blocks,
you think
or
they
they
just
looked
didn't
like
read
they
the
were doing
directions?
traditional.
They were trying traditional. See, because
They didn't know what partial sums was.
that grade that you have, when we started, we were still trying to figure out what it meant for our standard, because the standard is not in here to add and subtract to 100, is it? No, because it's just the word problem. Because we add and subtract to 1,000, and so it says something with using some sort of written strategy. So when we saw written strategy, you know, when we first looked at it, it goes straight to like, okay, well, the traditional algorithm is written. So we would do the base 10, and we would guide them over towards the traditional algorithm. So they saw the traditional algorithm in second grade.
But we did partial sums
But
too,
we
though.
did partial sums, and we did all the other things.
And then the
Supervisors
last,
But
that
some,
haven't you?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's why this year we're seeing
Some
so
of
much
the,
improvement.
yeah, we did partial sums
Yeah.
and then the algorithm at the very
then we had
last.
to, like, back up
last
with them,
year,
yeah.
yeah, because a couple,
They refuse to do anything else.
yes. So last year, we cut it out altogether.
Yeah, just not touch
and
it.
some of them didn't even move beyond the blocks, but they could show me with the blocks, so.
So then being that they're not transferring in 4th grade, what are the strategies that are offered in 3rd?
For addition, we do partial sums. But I have to say, last year, like, not a lot of them did it.
Shows that they didn't
Yeah.
prefer it.
And that might be because, like, when I model, like, I model a lot with base 10 too. So they're just doing what I'm doing. So, like, now knowing, like, you're all's concerned, I started this week modeling with partial sums.
We're a little worried because our standard says traditional algorithm up to 7 digits, and we're spending many days teaching partial sums. We can't even get to our standard, so we're kind of getting.
And see, that's what concerns us with this, because there's so many strategies, when they're still trying, they just can't,
To count
addition to
up.
5. You know, so when we start decomposing the higher end of, you know, but like, that's what our concern is. Do we focus so much on them understanding that one strategy when they can do it in that moment? You know, but if you gave them just a problem, they would still go back and choose counting on, counting back, or using the different tools. Because the decomposing is a good one, but it's hard because I worry that there might leave a gap in between here, and they're gonna have to go back and teach that way. Like, I guess, trying to decide which one has more power, which one is the power standard for this, to make them strong, have a good, strong base, so that when they do come here, they get to pick up. Does that make sense?
Because when on our post-assessment, it really is like, here's a problem. What strategy did you use? Like, explain the strategy you used. So it's really interesting to see, though, you know, you determine your low kiddos whenever they say, I counted up, I counted up, I counted up, because that's the only one they know.
Well, I think the problem with that group of kids is that they're not developmentally ready for those standards, but that's the standard of that grade level.
Right, which is not a
Seen in every-
choice.
Right.
Every year. So I think it's about balance. At the end of the day, I think it's about balance. It's about trying to stay within the time constraints, but also understanding that you need to have them understand.
One thing is having more meaty one that's going to come as a solid round. Not just because they learn this regional strategy, that they don't understand.
But at the same time, I want to offer the kid, you know, we have some really different thinkers. Like, if Nora's preference is decomposing numbers, you have to be exposed to it, so that can be her strategy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it will. And I think identifying some skills that we're kind of
Because that's what I'm doing.
And it says, oh, try it on with,
The first one was counting all. I'm like, what's coefficient? And they all do count on. Well, then today was introduced count on, like just go back and talk about it. And four of them said,
I'm gonna tell you, so if he contacts me, we know not one person's
and I'm like,
complete.
and I'm like,
Lucky you, Tina.
1, 2, 3, you know.
Well, and I still have to see, and I still have to, I'm on the home stretch, and we all have to right up there. And so I feel like it's a lot more obvious after a full year in first grade and we're still in second grade and they're still doing those things where you're like, here's a really big problem.
Where those are the ones that were
Now, they're trying to use the number line now, but we gotta get away from that.
So this is what they are, they're not like.
people standing that have no place to sit.
Oh, this is fun.
I saw that. I had a
Into the camera and like a deep voice.
absolute number is 6th grade.
He'll enjoy that.
I said, I guess I should go something. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, thanks.
So we're going to take the next 15 minutes to get back into grade level PLCs and then talk about some of the things that you found going through the progression and looking at the question on how will your knowledge of the mathematical progression impact your instruction in math?
Yeah, I didn't.
We should hold up.
Yeah, I'm gonna need the microphone right here in the center of this 4th grade team here. You can see how your students feel when you get observed. Let me zoom in. It's too light, you can't see it.
Do you have our?
I'm Manila folder.
Okay, here.
Are we talking?
Oh, I didn't bring.
Don't worry, girl, I got you. I took notes.
You should go first. Then maybe me and then you.
Okay, I did not take care of it. So I had numbers in elementary season, and before students come to fourth grade, they have the knowledge of place value, but it's not as in depth. They have adding and subtracting within a house, but no traditional algorithm. They have had rounding, but interestingly,
Well, no, you sit here and I'll.
oh yeah, they've had, but only to 10 or 100.
Sorry, Lori. Front digit.
It doesn't specify front digit, but
Yeah, it's kind of tricky, huh?
and then they've also had a beginning of multiplication. I'm trying every like 10 through 90 is the range. First rate up to. So we take this knowledge and we add on. So they've only had place values, I believe, to 1,000 so far. So we add on place value to 1 million. Then we add and subtract up to 1 million.
So that's real world. These kids will work with 7-digit numbers a lot.
They have also had comparing, but they've only had comparing in second. They don't have it in third. So they don't have comparing in third grade.
Comparing size of numbers. Comparing like which number's larger.
Yeah, absolutely. They kind of touch on it. They compare fractions so much. Okay, I guess they're talking about like
they're like unit fractions.
Base 10. They don't. That's not a standard in third grade to compare. Yeah, so we have to back to second grade knowledge, which was just comparing within 1,000.
Sometimes he does it just to like.
So we're gonna add on comparing to 1 million. And then we're gonna round, add on to that to 1 million. We're adding on to addition to 1 million, and we're also adding traditional algorithm. And then we are adding on multiplication, and it's up to 4 by 2.
So yeah,
that was
like really.
I got cut off.
Yeah, we saw that too.
A 4 by 1.
4 by 1.
A 2 by 2.
2 by 2, a 4 by 1.
So this two-step word problems, patterns, doing
Then they did some division in third grade.
100.
This was for I'm sorry, that's not in operations. So basically.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's in mine. I don't know. Multiplication and division.
But wait, we do have in fourth grade, what they have find whole number quotients and remainders with up to 4-digit dividends and 1-digit
Add
divisors.
and subtract within two partially mental strategy. Order and we do that like an extent to
Because this says by using equations, rectangular arrays, and dimensionless. So we do division.
But that's already a huge jump. Understanding the conceptual knowledge, like.
So what areas are we preparing our kids for? With place value, we're preparing them for decimals. We're preparing them.
We do decimals, tenths, and hundreds.
And then going.
to fourth, it's just adding on to that. So doing more patterns, comparing the multiplication.
You're just relating tenths of a fraction to
And knowing
tenths of a
exactly
decimal.
like a tenth of a fraction.
Then with comparing, they're moving on to comparing decimals. And then they are doing operations with decimals. So they have to be able to subtract, multiply, divide, and add decimals using concrete models. All of our addition, subtraction, multiplication, and comparing them. They're using the standard algorithm for multiplication and division.
Groups of.
Not true?
Multiplication
Yes.
tables.
Do they not do this? No, they don't. Standard algorithm.
Standard algorithm is
in sixth grade.
Yeah.
Because we do partial quotients.
Traditional multiplying.
But a lot of them have been
Yeah. So you have to like
We won't
reteach
let them use
it.
it.
You have to force them to say, well, I understand you want to know that, but I don't understand that you know the process and why it works if you don't do it this way. And they give you a little toot, and then you eventually pass it.
Which is they do rectifying.
Mostly the high friends. The low friends just do whatever you usually say.
Now, do we only do partial? I think it, or we only do partial products, right? I think we did this last. Correct.
Yeah, we take over traditional in fifth grade. Yeah. Like I still do that. Like I'm fifth grade. Still like pro fifth grade.
On operations and algebraic thinking, I just kind of looked at what's before us and what's after us. They're looking at patterns and hundreds and the multiplication table, which I know when we start multiplication, that's one of the things we do is have them look for patterns in the multiplication table, and it's like, maybe we shouldn't. We might have to go back and do that, but we might leave that out, because if that's what they're doing in third grade, maybe we're doing something we shouldn't need to do. Yeah, this year might be different. I just remember Michelle Horn came in last year and we were doing patterns in the multiplication table, which is not super rigorous, and I was like, yeah. So they're solving multiplication and division, but it's basic facts. And understanding division is just equal shares. They're relating that division is the reverse of multiplication. They're just looking for what, like 5 times what's going to give you the 40 that you have in your division problem, that sort of thing. That's third grade. They're learning like commutative property and distributive property and those kind of things, but they're not learning those names. They're learning all the properties, but they're not learning the terminology for it, which we don't either. And they do word problems within 100. And then for fifth grade, they start taking like piece of equations and putting them together. So the parentheses and the brackets, and also being able to look at maybe a word problem, and then what equation might go with that. How would you bracket that or put your parentheses in it that fits that story that they get. So that's fifth grade. They also do ordered pairs and coordinate grids, which we don't do. I'm not really sure what we would do with ordered pairs and coordinate grids that would prepare them. Like, what would be like your next step with that, other than at Christmas, give them like Christmas winter things that are coordinate grids. Coordinate grids. But there's like 3 things I put for fifth grade in this domain. So I thought that was interesting, and it was mostly a third.
Because I feel like a lot of fifth grade is everything.
Right. Amy Pierce used to say fourth grade's the year of the fraction and fifth grade's the year of the decimal. What do we do to build on that? What? On their Well, we kind of think of like multiplication as 5 times as much as something would be 35, or if you have 4 having 5 times as much as you. Word
multiplication and division. And then you have these sides already in here. Multi-step problems, or equations, factor pairs, within 100 though. And then number and shape patterns.
See, I have
So then they're looking for patterns within those number and shape patterns, like if you're adding 3 each time, what patterns do you notice in the numbers that you have when you're adding 3?
Oh, okay, so they're all.
Odd, even, that sort of thing.
So Molly and I had numbers, operations, fractions. So third grade is a lot of just like representing what a fraction is, you know, what a fourth looks like, what a third looks like. Using a number line to show your fraction. Showing equivalent fractions. Very basic. Pairing, but again,
Yes. We're going to come back together. I want to be respectful of your time before we leave. What are some implications that you found working within your vertical team and then your horizontal team with math instruction in the classroom? Heard a lot of great conversations going on.
We were just talking about how looking at second grade, how explaining your thinking and what strategies you use is not really a first grade standard. Like it wasn't until second grade, which I didn't know. But we were just talking about how we can start building them that writing and explanation now. So having maybe one day where they just explain their answer or write about like how did you know that, and then that way by the end of the year hopefully they have started that for second grade.
Small steps will equal great gains in the end. Absolutely.
We've been doing kind of that in our math win time this week because we're doing comparing numbers. We had a huge group of kids who could compare them, but out of that group, we had like some that couldn't explain it. So that's like a little chunk, we pulled that chunk out of the kids who know it to work on now explaining it. Kind of what she's talking about to start there.
As Debbie Thompson says, a true mathematician can explain what they're doing.
Yeah. And a lot of them can verbally say it, we've noticed, but then when they act today in my group, I was like, all right, I want you to, this last one, to write down how you know it. And they could verbally tell me, but writing it down, that was very hard for them.
So when we talk about writing across content areas, we see how naturally it can fit into writing, into math.
For all those people who are worried about counting and cardinality only being in kindergarten, when we really started looking at the number-based operations in Base 10, we were able to really see that like there's only one standard for kindergarten there, but then when we started looking at like first and second and third grade standards, they actually did tie back into those counting and cardinality standards that we taught in kindergarten.
So that foundation has to be solid.
Yes.
Rachel, you had a huge implication. I don't know if you mind sharing
Yeah,
out
just
between K and 1.
in teaching first grade last year, now going to kindergarten, you just so realize the importance of setting this foundation of number sense and the urgency behind it, because then when you get those kids into first grade, you hit it so hard in first grade, there's not time for counting and cardinality. And so those kids that didn't have that solid foundation are just from the beginning struggling, you know? They don't have that chance. So we were just the weight of, in kindergarten, having to get that solid foundation of cardinality and counting.
And you saw the huge shift from kindergarten to first. It's like, whoa.
If they expect at first that now you have all those understandings, so let's do something with them.
Sarah?
It's interesting to see, like, from third to fifth, I had fractions, but knowing that in third grade, you're doing partial sums and you're breaking apart so they're seeing it, and then in fourth grade, you introduce traditional algorithm for just addition and subtraction, but we teach partial products. And then in fifth grade, then you go on to the traditional, and then it's not till sixth grade for the division. So it's kind of nice to see that progression of like, they're getting it broken up, they're still getting that place value throughout each year, and then you're adding a layer every single year to make them more efficient mathematicians too. But it also kind of, if they don't get it here, it's gonna hurt them later on too.
So you realized how the progressions can help us identify essential skills within the bands.
I think that also makes me think about that the standards that I saw like in third grade, it doesn't say partial sums. They've chosen for that. But we did too. We were teaching partial products, but it doesn't say that we have to. We're just picking what we think. There's a lattice method for multiplication. So I feel like maybe we need to be more specific about what are the, I mean, when it says traditional, we all get that. We know what we're teaching then. But when it doesn't say traditional, what strategies are they moving along through the grades and using at Canby Station?
I think that's why these vertical discussions are so important, because last year when we had all those discussions with second grade, we talked about what strategies do you guys teach and which ones do we teach, so that way they weren't getting all these strategies in second grade and then it was completely new ones in third grade. So we have just progressed with those.
And it really helped this year, I think,
Yeah.
too.
Well, because we talked about a lot of, even going to conceptual building blocks and everything, in second grade, learning to be okay with concrete and semi-concrete. They don't need to know any of the traditional symbols, any of the traditional algorithms at all. It just has to be understanding with models and the blocks, and then moving away from that in upper grades.
I think that like everything everybody kind of has said here, it kind of makes me like even thinking back to kindergarten, that like sometimes I think we are all guilty of being like, well, we need to teach them more because we have high standards for ourselves, and especially here, like we have really high standards for ourselves. So we focus really hard on like teaching to the fullest extent, but sometimes like really, like I remember that conversation in second grade last year because I collaborated in Katie's room, and like saying like, wait, we just need to slow down. This is all we need to do because they really thoroughly understand it. And so I think it like, but when looking at this today, Judy and I had a real serious conversation about how like, I know we want to do more here in kindergarten, and it seems so simple to just sit and work on counting, but like, look at how much like really grasping it helps. Yeah.
And maybe it's not what you said, Amy, about teaching more, maybe it's how you go about it, back to what Amy said about explaining verbally, and then move into that written component to explain their thinking too.
I think you and I had a conversation, and Lori, I think, was part of it, but even extending, like if they're noticing, like there's some grades 0 to 100, they have to know, but then all of a sudden you jump into the thousands. Well, going from like even 0 to 10, and then recognizing the same patterns from 10, 20, and 20 to 30. Like I think we make the assumption that if they get it 0 to 10, then they get it in 50 to 60. But helping bridge that gap, I mean, even 0 to 100, go from 200 to 300.
Right.
Because I think we assume that, but maybe that would be a place where they can.
But I think that's how that wind is gonna impact, like when we moved around, we implemented like with one group, that's all we did, I had the hundreds chart and we focused on those patterns. And you could see a tremendous, like by the end of it, there was no numbers on the pocket chart. And I would hold one up and they could use their schema to figure out where it went. And those were the middle to low, kids just building on that, and then we did a lot of counting to 120 with objects, but trying to reinforce that. Having that little extra window that you can do that on, I think that's where WIN is gonna benefit us a lot.
And I think having extra people in there too. Like having extra people in there too, and more hands on deck and more time for that reinforcement of those concepts is so helpful.
Because that's been so nice to, I've had Renee and Kelly Toms in my room this week for WIN, and it's been so great to hear like the way that they're talking about partial sums, and I'm like, oh, right, that's the way I'm gonna do it. And it's also forced us to, as a team, talk about like, how are you doing partial sums in your room so that we are all doing it the same, and and I think I'm doing it the same as we did in second grade, I think. And so I think that means we're doing it the same that they're doing it in third grade. So Lynn has made us more intentional about making sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah, we did the same thing. We had to come together as our team and decide like, how are we know what strategies we're teaching, but how? Because now our kids are everywhere.
Right.
And they're all seeing it.
And then you think about the struggling child.
Right.
And they need that consistency of those strategies each year to help them move forward too. Well, the next time we meet on the 18th, we'll be looking at geometry and measurement and the progressions of that. If before you leave, you could just take a couple minutes, there's Post-it notes on your table, and just leave one takeaway that you are leaving here with after your discussion. Thank you.